Okay, let's start this meeting for the Sheriff Dispatch Subcommittee at 9:10. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, commissioners. This is our hopefully last meeting before we meet and decide on the budget. Sheriff, you gave me an answer to one of my questions on, actually it was Gene Chandler's question, on line 37 for dues, and you have a list of all the dues and subscriptions that you have, and I appreciate that.
Is this all you've got for us?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot missing from what we got before, and we couldn't continue this meeting without having that information.
Wages are still all up in the air.
I went by what we have. This was finals, and I actually went through the whole thing and have all these questions.
Yeah, the wages are all still up in the air, so anything to do with wages, because the negotiations did not get finalized between us and the union. However, we're close.
Is there a deadline set on that?
No, because
It goes by
the contract will expire at the end of the month next, right, March 31st.
So if it goes beyond that, then we're gonna have to have a special meeting, which is gonna cost the county some dollars.
Yes. Yep.
Your union isn't the only union that's in negotiation, right?
There's two others.
There's two others. So if you don't come to agreement by March 31st, I assume you go into arbitration, right?
Well, no, they're setting up
Or
mediation.
mediation, and then arbitration if you don't.
And then back to square one.
But everything stays the same after March 31st. Everything just stays the same. Now, the county, you gave your employees, what is
40
it?
cents.
40 cents. So that doesn't pertain to them.
That's only non-union.
Non-union, right. All right. So Gene Chandler had given me a couple of questions to ask you, and one of them was, why was the sheriff's health insurance less than the county's? Is it that you have less that you have on your insurance line? For, I think this might be medical insurance.
So you're talking about the individual insurance plans
Yeah.
for the people? Medical insurance.
If he gave me the line for that.
And you're talking about
I'll tell you one
It
second.
is less, and it's a better plan.
12?
On line 93. Or 90, on 093.
493.
So that's that 70,000 to 50,000.
Well, 93, I talked to Kathy Gary about that,
Yeah.
and she's revamping and redoing that. So we'll have an answer to that question when she has.
Madam Chairman, excuse me,
Yes.
what exactly is the question?
Well, I think Jean was, I have a,
We've
Good
got,
question.
one of my sheets, one of my many sheets here says 50,000 is the commissioner's budget.
yeah, I think the question was, when we were discussing it, is why there was a $20,000 difference.
In what?
In that line, 93. On what that was expended was 70,413. That was your end total, and then
Could
your
you, Carol, could you
Sure.
give me that figure again, please? 70,000?
70,413.42.
Okay, that's what was spent.
That was what was spent, and
Okay,
then,
well, that's, and he wants to know why we're going for $50,000 less.
No, it
mean,
was,
20,000
it was only
less.
budgeted for 50,000.
That's what I meant to say,
Yeah.
20,000.
Right.
Okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
So that's totally the
But I-
business office side.
right, I talked to Kathy, and she said she'll get me an answer to that, so I'm just gonna jump over it, and,
And that's the liability insurance for the agency.
Oh,
yeah,
That's
that's
not-
Primex.
that's not health
That's not
insurance.
health insurance, that's Primex, right? Okay. What makes up line 45, or 0445, is another one of his questions for deputy expenses. Can you just give us an overview of what that is?
That could be anything, to be honest with you. Typically, it did include the meals for the deputies when they did a transport out of county. We have subdued that cost greatly in this last year.
Okay.
But it could be if they need to run into the hardware store and get something, typically that might go on the charge card at that point.
This line right here.
Is this transport of prisoners too?
No, that has a separate,
I mean, the cost of food,
that's under meals,
that's on the meal?
and that's only $150 for the prisoner meal.
And you say it's only for outside of the county?
The,
04
for the deputies' expenses.
Sheriff, you've done a great job in that line item, but I thought that when there were discussions that you were gonna allow them if they were a long way from home at night to
Right,
eat,
right,
just out of state. What we
Yeah.
didn't want them was at 5 o'clock pulling in and having a $30 lunch when they're 10
Right.
minutes from home.
No,
You've done
it
a great
was
job.
3,000, we've cut it down to 2,500. And like I said, we've not used it as much this year as the years prior, because we were allowing meals in, if they happen to be in Alton or Concord. We've since got away from that practice. This would allow meals during training down the academy or wherever they're at.
Okay.
And if they have to do a transport out of state, which is pretty common, Massachusetts, Maine, those meals would be allowed, but not necessarily a transport from Concord to back. There's probably not going to be an allowed meal there.
When you transport to another state, are you transporting because at the request of another facility, or are you transporting for court in another state?
It's-
When you say transport
It would be
out-of-state?
for 99% of them are on extradition, basically of a felony fugitive.
Okay, so you captured them here and then...
No, vice versa. They
Vice
capture
versa.
them outside the state.
And
Oh,
you
you
go
go
and
get
get
them.
them?
We go
Oh,
and get them
okay,
to bring
okay.
them
Well, then that
face the
answers
court
my
here.
other question,
If
okay.
they have
The
one
only-
here, they come and get them.
Yeah, the only other difference is IAD transport, where if they're in, I mean, I've gone to New Jersey, where the prisoner is in New Jersey, and then he's requested to take care of something that's pending in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
So he can write to the court, say, hey, I want a hearing on this. We have to go get him in Jersey. He has his court hearing, and then we have to bring him back to New Jersey. That's how that law reads.
It's interesting. And when,
Bummer.
You have to-
when they have their meals, do you have credit cards, or are you just reimbursing them?
Credit card.
You have credit cards? Okay,
Madam Chairman?
yes.
I look at these bills very, very closely every week, and the sheriff's department, of all the departments, probably does the best job keeping track of, if they go in for a McDonald's hamburger and a
Right.
Coke, there's a slip for it.
That's great.
Who the prisoner is and where they want, they do, probably, I think by far the best job keeping, that's one thing I wouldn't worry about.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and you gave me the fees and services dues. The special details, he had a question, what makes up the special details? And that could probably be a long answer. I don't know. So that, you spent 35,000, and I see where, I've got arrows going. So from our last conversation,
All over the
arrows going up to grant and salary. Because you spent 32,000, you're requesting 23,500. Did some of that money go between departments? Or should I say, line items?
Yeah, special details, and that would also be reflected in revenues, though.
Right, for Albany,
Right.
right,
20,000 of that is the town of Albany agreement.
okay, yeah,
The rest of that is mostly details as far as commercial details that we may get during the year. This year would happen to be a pretty substantial year for working commercial details with tree cutting and Coleman's up in Conway area. in Albany. So even though we spent it, we've also
You've also received.
brought it back in the revenue.
Yeah, okay. And I do have a note here that grant and salary in 002, that is because of the, you pulled out of the drug task force, right? So
Yes.
that's why it's not as substantial as it
Right.
was.
So that would only now include probably the speed grant and the assistance to Wakefield with the sobriety checkpoint.
Right, the speed grant, 5,000. The speed grant's about 5,000, right?
Yeah, last year was just under that. That's based on an overtime rate is how that gets submitted.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I hate to
Commissioner.
be rude, but
No,
we have
no,
to
you're
go to
rude.
another meeting. Could I ask the sheriff a
It's
couple
only
questions?
9 o'clock.
It's only 9 o'clock.
Would you mind if I ask?
I
you?
don't know.
While you're talking about, the next line down, salary, personal days, sheriff, I mean, that's a huge amount of money. How does that happen?
That is per contract.
What's the contract say?
Because the contract says that they're allowed 15 days per year, every employee is full-time at the sheriff's office.
Personal?
Personal or sick is what that
Yeah,
is.
they're not called sick days anymore.
Right.
That way you don't have people calling up and lying to you. You just need to take a day off, take a day off.
And they get their 4 or 5 weeks vacation on top of that.
Yes. Yeah, the personal time is paid out at the end of the year. If they don't use it, they get 3/4 paid back to them. So
So if
that's
they've
why
got
that,
10 day, if they've got 12 days, come the end of the year,
they'll get 9.
they get paid for 9
3/4,
if they didn't
something
take
like
them.
that, yeah.
plus
So
the day they come to work.
They don't roll it over. You don't roll
Right,
it over.
there's a very minimal rollover allowed.
Okay, so and that 3/4 pay is going into their retirement.
Yes. So that
The
line,
entire amount, or are you talking about they get credited for 9
They
personal
would-
days? They get credited towards their retirement.
Well, they'll get paid for it, so part of that paycheck
Goes
would
into
go
Right.
into their
That's what I meant.
retirement, yeah, yeah.
so that basically has to be there in case none of them take a day off for personal or sick reasons. Now you've got every
Now you gotta
employee
pay
that
'em.
you've got to pay.
How many days was it?
9.
15.
Oh, 15, but
total,
right.
it comes out to
Per
be
person.
9 days.
So what is the incentive to not come to work if you're sick? The incentive is to come to work because if you're sick, because at the end of the year, you're gonna get paid for those days that you don't stay home when you really are sick.
It's a personal
You know,
preference between individuals. Some use them, some don't. I tended to use maybe 2 a year because I saw it as a benefit, but not to use them.
So you,
Some people do actually have to use them.
you get like a $7,000 difference though in that. Is that because?
It should be.
From what,
Oh.
when I say that, I'm going from actual to what you're budgeting, what you want, what you're requesting, let me put it that way.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
what did you get for a final figure on that? My last figure is $283
On what?
on that personal.
Well, they
Personal.
spent 20,000.
Right.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and 20,425, and they're requesting 27,752. So I'm just,
Thank you.
I went through this whole thing and
Yeah.
just rounded off stuff, just to, so I could ask the question. So it's up like, the request is up to $7,000. Is that because you have another, more personnel, or you?
We had more personnel than we began the year with. There were, from January to April, there were 2 less deputies because there were vacancies when I arrived.
Okay.
And so that would be the main reason.
All right. Before the commissioners leave, I just want to, my figures show in your total budget, a difference of about $100,000. Does that sound right to you, from actuals to what you're requesting? I took the actuals, 1,720,229, and the recommendation is
1820.
1,819,777.
That
So,
looks to be about right.
so it's about 100,000 in difference. Do you,
That's without any wages.
that's without, right, without any,
Increase.
without the increase in negotiations and that, so that's really what you have. Just off the top of your head, I mean, I've got, plus, 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 it's like plus almost in all your lines. I understand medical insurance. I understand why there's a plus there. If people change their plans, you have to adjust your figures for that. So that's up about 19,000.
Do you want to talk after?
I'll give you a call.
And your retirement,
Okay.
the same thing. I mean, if retirement goes up, that's out of your control.
If wages go up, retirement's
Right.
gonna go up, all the insurances will go up,
Right,
Social Security's gonna go up.
yep.
So, yeah, everything will adjust.
Your salary for deputies has gone up about 22,000. Now, I asked you at one time, you have, counting yourself, 13
13.
deputies, right? And 8
Full-time.
special, right? So 13 full-time, 8 deputies that are part-time. So if we haven't done any increments in salary, can you just tell me why your salary line in deputies has gone up 22,600 from actuals? That's '07.
During the year, there were some increases. 2 of them came off probation. The 2 that were hired during the year.
Okay.
And in the contract, there's anyone who has a 5-year increment that works here, they automatically get a 50-cent an hour raise.
Okay, it's like a
So it's a
step raise.
longevity pay is what that was. To give some incentive to continue
To
working
stay,
here.
yeah.
Where the pay was minimal.
So you feel that's why it went up as much as it did, between those two
That would be,
things?
without looking at it closer,
Okay.
part of the reasons.
And your salary stayed the same?
Yes, mine's set by yourselves, every 2 years, I think, or.
Okay. And the medical, retirement. Education and conferences went up 4,000. That's line
Went up
17?
4,000?
I think so. Well, you spent 1,900.
Right, it
And-
was budgeted 6. so
and
that
you'd budgeted
went
6.
Down 5, so I mean, went down to 5, I was taking 1,000.
Yeah, so what I'm wondering is, you didn't spend it, why do you want to spend it now?
Because, as I had said before, the training that is at the academy,
Yep,
as deputies and myself are in the profession for any period of time, you kind of work through all the trainings at the academy because they don't
okay.
bring in new items. So now you need to start looking outside to conferences or education. I reluctantly held back on sending people to education conferences, not knowing what the budget really was going to look like, so.
So do you have, I mean, when you put a figure like that in, do you pinpoint where you want, like, there's a conference coming up in Arizona, or there's a conference coming up that you're really interested, I mean, or do you just kind of throw a figure at it and say, yeah, that should probably cover a couple of conferences out of state? I mean, is it something that you look in advance for, or do you?
No. Do I know there are a few out there? Yes. But no, I hadn't taken that time. Looking at over the years what that line was, it was pretty much the same throughout all those years. Some sheriffs spent more than others, obviously, during the years. And again, I held off on spending really anything in that line.
Okay.
So I guess if we could give a close look at it during the year to see what this year may actually spend, and then adjust it accordingly next year.
Because one conference could cover almost, if it was
Yeah.
in California,
Yeah.
you'd be spending a lot of money.
These are like CEUs, right? You
Yeah.
don't send people that far away for,
No, we haven't. I mean, the sheriff prior to me did send a couple to Washington. So it has been done. I'm kind of reluctant to do it because you gotta outweigh the cost and benefit.
right?
If it's just something that's being taught in Florida and you can get it in the local college up here,
Right.
it would make a lot of difference. And as far as a national conference for sheriffs or anything, I mean, I'm kind of reluctant to go to those because of the cost factors. You're there for 3 or 4 days in a hotel, is that responsible to put that onto the county?
Is that an educational experience, or it's just?
Some of it is and some of it
I'm
isn't.
sure they do.
Some of it's,
No, I mean,
know,
it's
the
the same
town halls
situation
do it.
with land surveyors. I
Yeah.
mean, we have CEUs and,
right, right.
I mean, they do teach during the day,
Give
Right.
courses.
Workshops,
Yeah.
right.
So
But you should take
I'll have
advantage
to-
of some of those
I'll
things
have
that
to
are,
look at
yeah.
it close to see what's worth and what's not.
okay. And uniforms, that's up from actuals about 6,000.
that was a
that-
contract item, right?
Is that a contract item?
It is a
Uniforms?
contract item.
Okay,
And this contract is actually asking for an increase in maintenance. So that's why that figure is showing
Okay.
different from last year's adopted budget.
all right. And computer, are you buying new computers because you only spent 1,000 in that line, and now you're asking for 5, so you're replacing some computers? I
Yeah,
probably said
on
this
the-
before, but
Right.
I guess I just didn't write it down. So some new equipment for new computers. Now, when we're buying computers, is that going to go into that tech thing that we've been discussing at the delegation? Or is that just tech support that they're looking at?
No, it's kind of needs and wants.
So at some point, that
It will
might.
get discussed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And your radio communication is up like 4,700. That's line 69. You only spent $341 in that. And you're asking for 5.
The previous year, they spent on each side of the 5.
Well, like in 012, in 2012, they spent $6,000.
Right.
And then you only spent $341, but you want 5. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I mean, is this going to be on top of that grant that we're hoping you get, or
No,
is
the
this
grant
something
is
different?
going to be specific.
Okay.
That's for dispatch.
Yeah,
This would typically be for portables and possibly mobile radios, mostly portable stuff, which one radio is $3,200.
Do you anticipate getting new portables?
I do, because, my radio does not transmit, it receives.
You don't need to talk to anybody, do you?
That's why I have it. But there are a couple that are this old on their last legs.
Right.
yeah.
We did just get this last year, and then I think one before, or 2 before that. So we are starting to rotate them out. And we would look for, if they're available, matching grants on those. I'm not sure if it's available for the portables.
Oh, okay. Matching grants. And your vehicle, you're going to purchase 2. At first, you had 97,000 that you requested, and it went down to 76. You just get a new cost, is that what it was?
No, the 97 was last year's
what it cost last
lease
year.
purchase agreements. We paid off one,
Okay.
so that obviously dropped it down. We're looking to get two. To replace two that, one's actually the K-9 unit right now, with over 110,000 miles. And the second one is around 100,000. But the next year, we will look to be getting three of the original Crown Victorias that are left. Those get paid off this year.
The K-9 vehicle is equipped with the,
Yep.
you know, the
Yep.
K-9
And if we
equipment, right? So-
do swap that out, I mean, it has had issues over the years as far as maintenance.
Yeah,
If we do swap that out, it will go into what is currently the number 2 car right now, which is the same vehicle. We'll
they'll
swap
just
it out.
swap it out.
Yeah.
And so the 76,000, is that with, that's purchasing the vehicle and then having it equipped with all your stuff that you need to have in
Not
it?
so much,
Not
no.
so much.
I'm trying to keep it mostly the purchase of the vehicle.
How do you?
That will have some equipment in it. I did ask for the radios in the different line, in the consoles.
Oh, what line is that in?
But that may include the stickers and stuff like that, the decals.
So you actually take equipment out of an old vehicle and put it in a new vehicle?
Some
yeah.
of it.
Wow.
The wiring
How
harness,
do we
no.
get our chief to do this? I didn't say that.
I mean, the light bars we're using are old, but,
Some things just don't work anymore, or,
right.
right, I understand.
And the wiring harness and all that
Right.
need to be,
Do you have
Changed out.
Osby Mountain do that?
no, John Saxby, who's a part-time deputy,
Oh, he can do all
does
that?
it for us and does it for
Well, that's
Conway
good.
PD. Saves a lot of money.
Yes, I'm sure it does. All right, and 93.
One question I did have with the vehicles was Earn Automotive. They sent this out, and it says that the new build dates are out. So they said if you can get your order in by February 28th of this year, you would be purchasing the 2014s. After that, the 2015s, the line will be shut down, and then they'll be looking at March 15th to start ordering the 15s, which would be built later. So you'll get them later in the year, but there'd also be a 2 or 3% increase in the price. So, not sure on your view.
Well, the
As
balance
far as-
would be that it's gonna be a newer car, you're not gonna have as many miles on it this year, because you're gonna pick it up later, so you have to figure out which is gonna be a savings.
I don't know how you, unless you do a purchase order, how you do that when the money hasn't been allocated.
Yeah, yeah. And this company in particular will take that risk in ordering them, because they know they can get rid of them if
I mean, they
things
have
fall
to,
through.
I'm sure they realize that most towns don't have town meeting until
Right, and
March.
they do, and he said that, in fact, I
Yeah.
talked to him
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
But obviously, they're pretty consistent on what vehicles do get ordered and what monies get put through, pretty consistently
Let me write
agreed
this
on.
down. So if you order it before, if you order it by February what?
28th.
I mean, that's like just down the road.
11 days.
Yeah. Is that a commissioner's decision? Or is that a commission?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if he wanted to put the order in, is that to save money?
I don't know, on the town level, the chief knows sometime in January whether
Right.
he's gonna have resistance to getting a new vehicle, so he can do that, but I don't know, this is a different situation,
It
so I
is.
don't really they can
I
say-
mean, the increase is no more than it typically would be for a new year vehicle.
Right,
So it's not like they're gonna pull a quick one. But it would save 2 or 3% if we order them by the end of the month. So
But you'd be ordering a 14, not a 15.
Right.
But even when you look at a 15, it's still kind of a 14 because it's manufactured in 14.
Yeah, but he's not gonna pick it up until probably October or November.
Oh, that late?
Right.
Oh,
And then
where you would pick, if you ordered that,
These
you'd
would
pick it up right
probably
away.
be July.
July,
Yeah, so he's gonna gain 3 or 4 months of use
right,
by using the old vehicles in the interim.
yeah,
So that's gonna extend the life of the,
of the 15.
Right.
I don't know what to tell
I
you.
have to sit down and crunch the numbers on that one and figure
Yeah,
out.
I think, I guess you'd have to, I think what you, if you could get the figure to me, on the cost savings, 2 or 3%, I don't, if I did that, is it 2 or 3% of 76,000? I mean,
No, it would be 2 or
No.
3% on, like, right around 26,000 for the vehicles.
26. Can you do that percentage?
I'm sorry?
20,
But I can get those exact numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only looking at, what, $500?
$500, no,
Right.
yeah. I'm just always leery about purchasing something that hasn't, the funds
Yeah,
haven't been,
I mean, if it was 10 vehicles, it'd be a little different.
sure.
2
Well, if he-
vehicles,
If he doesn't get the money for it, he's not gonna be able to spend it,
Well, I know that,
unless he wants to rearrange his entire budget, but,
yeah.
so, and they're accustomed to this.
Personally, I don't have a problem with ordering it before February. I mean, that's personally, but I'm only one person, so I don't have any authority. But when I look at if I can save money, that's what I would do. You might want to talk to the commissioners, yeah, about that. And new equipment in 97 is up about 8,700. Just a quick overview of what that is, if you don't mind.
that would be,
I was gonna say, I don't think I'm vibrating. Huh.
some of that is the vehicle equipment.
For the new vehicles?
Yep, and most of that is, no, that would not be.
Excuse me.
It's line 97.
Yeah, it was, you spent 10,000 in that line, but you're asking for 18,700.
Okay.
1875.
That would be 2 mobile radios, so,
But
Yeah.
that's up in radio equipment, right? Or is that different?
no,
Because I've got portable and mobile radios in line 69.
yeah, what I have noted was new equipment, actually, I'll have to take a look at that,
Okay.
computer expense. So I have 3 monitors and workstations.
3 what? Monitors?
Monitors and workstations, 2 mobile radios, radio consoles and wiring, brackets, and then 3 radar units, which would be a half grant.
3 radar. So you pay half and some.
The state pays half.
State,
It's the Department of Safety.
okay. So the mobile radios in 69 are different than the,
Portable radios.
so those are portable.
Right.
All right, so I want to know the difference, that's okay. And then the mobile radios, and the workstations for the console and the wiring, and 3 radar units, which you pay half and the state will pay half. That would make up the $87.50.
Yes.
Okay. And your IT budget is pretty much the same, you know, it's like
Yeah.
level funded.
I think that's gonna be looked at closely by the delegation, that
Yeah,
IT committee,
okay.
to put that into the commissioner's budget.
Right, okay,
Because again, that's like that Primex insurance, they tell you what you pay
yeah.
portion.
All right, you have any questions?
Maybe a concern,
Okay.
hang on just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure this thing doesn't ring. New phone. 99,548.
Yeah, that's the.
That's a big number. We're gonna have trouble with that. For an increase, that's 7% increase.
I'm terrible for things like that.
So I guess it's not so much of a, a question as it is a concern that I'm afraid we'll see some pushback on this. Because it's a significant increase over last year, so I guess, I'm sure you're aware of that, though.
I think the thing that you is the uncontrolled ones that you have to look at, and what does that add up to?
Those aren't there yet.
Right.
Well, not even there,
contract
I know,
issue.
but you've still
And
got,
so we could be potentially looking at a 10% increase, and we have to be able to defend this.
there's about 30,000 of that increase in medical insurance and retirement. You know,
Yes, and
give or
part of
take.
that was change in plans from individuals. I think 2 may have jumped onto a family
Yeah.
plan, and one was a 2-person.
Your salary increase in deputies, you ran part of a year without 2, right?
Yes.
Until you came on
Yep.
board.
About April.
So. How well did the department function without them? I mean, that's, that's a lot of, to me, it's a large chunk, 2 people, not having 2 positions filled. I mean, what, did you do a lot of
Not being-
overtime?
Well, not being here, I don't
You don't know?
know. We did use some overtime and part-time, because you'll see the part-time ran over budget
Right.
Right.
during the beginning of the year to cover those shifts.
And your overtime budget went way up.
Yeah, so you're kind of asking for,
Time shouldn't have went up.
if you got 2 new people on board, this is what I don't understand. If you got 2 new people on board, why do we need almost
Well,
$46,000 in overtime?
Well, it's 40.
They're not,
40. Yeah.
they're not new. They
Like a
filled
10,000
vacancies that were,
difference.
Well,
one left a month after I got here. And then he was replaced. And there was a vacancy that was here when I got here. So the
right.
deputies are up to staff, full staff that has been over the years. But that didn't happen till April, if I remember correctly.
But for next year, you're still asking for $40,000 in overtime.
I thought we were gonna decrease that.
Well, I don't have it decreased here.
The only thing-
And I think some of that, because I don't think we provided the numbers to Kathy from our last meeting. Because grant salary, I don't know if you have your change, is at 10?
Grant salary, I have no longer participating in drug task force, was 22, is now 10. That's what I
No,
have.
minus 10.
And that should be 5.
And,
That's what we
well,
agreed.
then I had 5,000 speed grant, okay, so that,
That's what we had agreed upon.
and I
the
do
first
have
meeting.
5,000 here, yeah,
Okay.
I do, okay, so That's 5,000 there.
That's an administrative?
Grant salary, 02, right?
Yep.
See it on here.
Okay,
So it should be 5,000, not 10. That's good.
Overtime originally was 42,
Right.
and I believe I had stated that we bring that down to 37.
Oh, see, I don't have that in
So
my
that would have been
notes.
$5,000 off of the 42.
that's the overtime.
Yeah, that's 05. 7,000. So that's,
Education and conferences should read 5,000. That was number 17.
number is that?
17.
Should read what?
5,000,
Okay.
not 6,000. That's,
What was other fees and services? I wasn't sure.
other fees and services includes any contracts, and it also includes the cost of the attorney during negotiations. That's basically the majority of it.
Okay.
So I think if we get a 2-year agreement on the union contract, next year should hopefully reflect that we hopefully won't need
Spent
it
last, yeah.
for a year.
Okay. I'm gonna go through and get I'll get a different number for that.
Any idea when we'll have the final numbers on last year?
This is it?
I should have them.
Those are all your actuals? That was.
There were several things that weren't,
I
we
thought
talked
that,
about the last time that weren't.
yeah, we didn't have it last time, but that's what we got at the delegation meeting.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we got it in this thing here, you know, it was green.
Mhm.
And,
Okay,
yeah, so those figures, I went through them, they're same.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because even this one doesn't reflect the changes, because see, the date's the same, 2/1. So if the delegation wanted you to cut more, where would you see in this budget that you could
Mhm.
comfortably do that?
Not really.
Wanted to ask the question.
Yeah,
Well-
no, I hear you. The special deputy line is up $15,000. And I had spoken about that.
Right.
Because 30,000 of that is basically ties up the 2 bailiff deputies, the 2 part-timers that do 99% of the transports for the Ospey Court. Some of that is reimbursed by the state. But then, if we didn't increase that, that leaves me no money for part-time deputies to fill shifts instead of overtime. So I would say if we want to knock down the overtime to 35,000 instead of 37.
No, I'd say the more you do with us, the better off you're gonna be.
Right.
In the ability to get that part-time money.
Your administrative salaries are up a little bit. Is that due to the 40 cents?
See if I think I included that already.
I mean, I've got a difference of about 11,600 from actuals. Because it looks like what was budgeted was 154,396, and
Yep.
you only spent 145,419, and you're asking for 157. Is that added, I mean, the administrative salaries, is that secretaries?
It's the chief deputy.
Chief
who-
deputy.
who
Yeah,
didn't go to that rate, and I think it was a month later.
right.
And the Lieutenant Santuccio, and Teresa Shackford, the executive assist,
Who?
Teresa Shackford is the administrative assistant to to me,
Okay, so, yeah.
the sheriff's secretary.
Yeah.
So those three
So
people.
those three people. So Richie didn't come on board, and that's why that's,
At that rate, he was
Yeah.
part-time for that first month, but,
and that's why there's a huge difference on the 2012, because he didn't exist, right? He didn't exist when it
well,
was
he didn't exist at that
at that point.
title for a month. So is that 11,000? No, I'll have to
Yeah.
take a closer look at that.
Yeah.
I don't see where I've increased it to 40 cents. So that was after I,
Oh. So that's gonna be, that would be
but
even,
I don't see it going up. So I'll refigure that.
but if you give everybody a 40-cent raise in that department, because they're non-union, it's gotta go up, right? Hmm. I think what you have to look at is the 157,116, is that the figure without the 40 cents? And if, when you add the 40 cents to each one of those, each one of those individuals, it's gotta go up. I don't know how we can't.
The secretary is a separate salary line.
It is?
One secretary, right.
Right.
That's the second secretary.
Oh, that's the, yes. Why is that on the
She's
separate
in
one?
the union.
Oh, she's in the union. Interesting. She's the secretary for who?
For the, in the civil office. She's not. She's a secondary secretary.
Secondary
that does
secretary.
that does the civil process, basically.
Like the, like the
The writs that
the
come in from the
Ritz,
courts.
that's what I
Yep,
meant.
yep.
Thank you, okay. That's
Yep.
good to know, salary secretary. Oh. Okay, so those two changes. Any other that you see? On your vehicle expense, I got a question.
Yep.
All of your, how many cruises do you have in all?
Each deputy has a cruiser, then there's the transport van
Okay.
for the bailiffs, and there's one spare cruiser that we own.
So that brings you to
15.
15? All right.
And then the Hummer, which is garage, which
Well,
is what it is.
You only have one of those now, or?
No, we're
Just
still, the state
I'll
has,
help you find a home for that if you want. I mean,
can the chief use that?
somewhat offensive. I mean,
What's that?
The Hummers.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, they got 50 cal mounts on the roof that I got feedback from. I mean, people recognize that as a military weapon.
Well, it doesn't come with the 50 cal. It comes with the
Yeah,
hole
but
in the roof.
Right. Right.
but you could put one in if you wanted to.
Right.
All right,
But,
so,
no.
No, we are
don't want
working
to
on,
cheat.
we are working on getting rid of the second one. It's, they've made a different process where we've have to register online and go through all the hoops and,
Okay.
so we
You'd
are
be
working.
better off hauling
We
that
are
communication trailer around with a pickup truck than a Hummer. I
Uh,
mean,
depends who you talk to.
well, it comes to maintenance and all that stuff, those things are dinosaurs.
I haven't had, we've replaced one thing and we got the part for free.
And you don't do anything with them, it's just sitting there.
which
I mean,
isn't
we-
good
we
for a
do take
vehicle
it
either,
out.
right?
We
You
do
do,
take it
just to
out
make
and
sure it's
just
still
ride
work.
it, yep.
So my question to
Way
you is, every deputy has a vehicle and takes it home.
Mhm.
And you have deputies all over the place, right? They aren't just located here in
Not as,
Oxapee.
not as all over as I'd like to be, but no.
All right, I know Carroll County is vast. I mean, you have a huge territory to cover. But you have deputies in the northern part, right? Jackson or up that way?
Not living.
They don't live up there.
No,
Where's the
there's-
farthest deputy that you have
There's
that
three of us that live in
lives?
Conway.
You live, okay, and that's the farthest that, okay.
Yeah. And the majority live in the Wakefield, Moultonborough, Wolfboro area.
Wolfboro area, okay. The ones that live, that aren't on duty, has there ever been a discussion about them driving here to pick up their cars and?
There's always been discussion about that over the years.
Yeah. I know in
Much like
Moultonboro, we
this-
stopped that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and much like the state police, we're a regional department.
mhm,
We are on call 24 hours because we do the law enforcement for the towns that don't have law enforcement. We are the only ones that can do the IEA transports from the hospitals, so those are on on-call basis. A good majority do happen overnight. You know, we get a call at 1 o'clock to say, bring this person to Concord. So,
you don't have on-duty, I mean, when you say everybody's on duty 24/7, I mean, you don't have specific people who are on call for,
yes, the two that just get off shift, basically.
are your on-call
Right,
people?
for 4
So
hours.
those would be the people that would be called out if you had those type of
Right, the-
situations, not the ones that are off-duty, because then you'd be paying them overtime, right? If you call them
Either
out.
way, you're paying overtime, right?
But your on-duty people know they're on duty,
No, they're on call
or on call, I should
per
say.
right, unless
And-
they make arrangements for some,
And when they're on call, are they on overtime when they're on call?
no.
They're not?
There is no pay for
Okay.
just being on call,
All right.
which,
Well, I know
Something
that could be a
different issue.
whole other thing, right? That's probably a negotiating thing. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
I get that. Trip went through that. I mean, they're driving back and forth. If something happens, they're
Oh.
on, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Well, my husband did the same thing. Yeah. I mean, he was on call for homicides for the
Well,
whole
just
state.
driving to and
Yeah.
from work. I mean, if you're,
Yeah.
see something happening, you've gotta respond, and I get that. The question I have is about the additional vehicle that you've got. You've got
Yep.
one extra cruiser?
yep.
So you got 15 cruisers plus an extra one.
Well, 14 cruisers plus
14
a van.
cruisers, a van, and then an extra one that doesn't get driven
No.
anyway. What's the extra one do?
That's the 14th.
Okay, so you got
13.
13, so whatever the
There's
end number is, you
13
get 13
Right, that's,
and
That are used all the
13
time.
cover 13
and
deputies.
13 deputies.
Right, there's one spare that sits out back here.
The spare, that's what I
Yeah,
meant. That's
sits
what
out
my
back here for
concern.
part-time use. We own it. It's a lot cheaper to basically jump in that instead of having to go chase a car if a part-timer needs it,
Right.
or if we have an extended period of vehicle maintenance, which with the older Crown Vics, we've been replacing
Mhm.
heater blend doors throughout the last couple of years, which will put them down 2 or 3 days, because they have to tear out the whole dashboard.
I guess what my thought process is if we could cut one of the vehicles from next year's budget.
You won't save a penny.
Okay. I don't know how that works.
Because you're basically saying you want to cut this spare cruiser out here.
Right.
We're not putting any money into it, we own it.
Yep. But you're buying a new one. You're buying 2 new vehicles.
To replace 2
Right.
ones.
So if that one
probably
goes
should-
into service, regular service, you only need 1 new vehicle.
No, because this one is one that came out of the fleet, because it has over 100,000 miles on it.
Okay.
And it's basically for those reasons that we keep it as a spare. We didn't have a spare before that. And you're still spending the same amount of money. The money is being spent on vehicle maintenance and fuel. Obviously, that doesn't eat fuel unless it gets used.
Yeah, and you're not gonna, well, but if,
And if,
you're gonna have to have fuel in the new ones too, so that
Yep.
is a wash. You just would have 1 less that needs fuel, if you had
well,
1
it
less.
only needs it when it's used, and it's only getting used because one of the others can't be used.
I'm only pointing this out because that might be, if the delegation comes back and says, you gotta cut your budget, because 7 or 8% is too much.
Yep.
Then,
Again, you won't see the savings, honestly.
okay.
Your equipment, do you have like a schedule on all your equipment? When it's like, we always had
Yeah.
a schedule on
Yeah.
when we rotated things.
Capital
And
reserve.
so your capital reserve.
Which they don't allow you, but
Well,
they're
No,
working
but
on it.
that
but, I
concept,
mean, even
yeah.
if you had a schedule of your own, that you know when you have to rotate and which
don't.
ones go out, and this year I'm gonna need 2, next year I'm gonna need 3, and so on and so forth. But your spare, I'm assuming that we own, that you just use and just hangs out there. When you buy the 2 new ones, are you trading in the 2 old ones, or are you putting one of those as the spare and then getting rid of the spare? You know what I'm saying?
Well, honestly, I was gonna see about keeping a secondary spare unmarked, because the county had to pay a bailiff to go 2 weeks to school mileage. It cost the county $666 for mileage,
Why wouldn't you have
Because
taken
it-
the spare?
because the county has no, because I don't think we had it at that point. I know we didn't have.
Oh, you didn't have the
Right.
spare then?
So I think the county as a whole should have a vehicle that can be used by any county employee.
that doesn't necessarily have to be a Crown Vic we've paid it.
No, it
It
doesn't.
could be a
No.
Prius or something.
Moultonborough always used an old cruiser. I mean, we always had
It's
a.
just
They have,
You
I
own
mean,
it.
I did the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing as the code officer in Tuftonboro. I took
Yeah.
an old cruiser.
Right,
But then we had maintenance costs.
Yeah.
Because they're pretty beaten up by the time they're
Sure.
done.
well,
Well, I'm just trying to
Yep.
work through this
Yeah,
for you.
I mean, that will not be the spot that will get
But
what
that-
you're trying to get to.
Okay. The only other thing you can do
I
is
s-
cut personnel.
I see more
Well, that's
advantage
always
keeping
the
that
guts of
cruiser
your
than
partner.
just getting rid of it to think we're gonna save money.
I mean, you have like 80,000, well, it's 83, $88,000 for your vehicle expenses, and that's for tires and.
And I did ask for an increase because we went
Yep.
over.
Yeah, and gas
5,000,
and
yeah,
all of that,
yeah.
and you gas up with the state most of the
yeah.
time. Sometimes you get
90%
stuck.
of the time,
Yeah,
yeah.
90% of the time. So that saves you that 18 cents a gallon. That, you don't have to pay if you go to an Irving station. My point, I think I really want to find out, and I do understand the demographics of Carroll County. I do understand that, and how, the guys, but every time they bring their cruiser home and come back, that's mileage that they're using back and forth and back and forth. And do all sheriffs in all counties allow their deputies to bring their cruisers home?
As far as I know, I'll double
Most of them
check.
do, yeah.
But again, they're in service from the doorstep, just like a trooper,
Right,
Right.
to the doorstep.
right.
It's a
So-
tough one to get around.
Yeah, I know, I'm just, thinking, for the ones that really could just drive their car and pick the cruiser up and leave from here that are close enough.
I guess to that point, you're you're not seeing
A
a
savings?
savings.
Well,
Because if
wear
you're
and
talking
tear
about
is wear
someone that
and
lives
tear.
2 miles down the street,
Well, no, listen,
on
I just
duty.
drove over 171.
Yeah.
And I know Richie Young has to drive over 171, so it's, it's 20-something miles. But I'm not saying for Richie not to have his cruiser. I'm just trying to figure out ways to save some money, that's all. Because I know we're gonna be.
We're gonna take a lot of it.
Yeah, we are. Can we get on, are we done with sheriff? Can we go on to dispatch? Because if I can get out of here at closer to 10:30,
It's only
I'd be
9
good.
o'clock.
No, it's 10:10.
Sure.
All right. And dispatch, I got my notes on that. Let's see. If anything's sticking out here. Okay, so salaries are up on that, about 16,000 for personnel on 004. On dispatch. What is that?
Personal days.
that's personal days.
Salary,
And that's to
personal
cover the
days.
contract, where it
Well,
was
how come
not
it's so
covered
much?
before.
Oh. Oh,
Um,
okay.
That would be a risky thing. I mean, that's up to the, it's one of those things, some use it, some don't. If they choose not to use it that single year, then you're gonna see that line go over by that much.
We used to put
have
that in a
pay it out.
capital reserve fund, believe it or not.
So that's
You know that?
out of my,
Medical insurance went through the roof.
Yeah, I've got 41,000,
Yeah.
a $41,000
And that's
difference.
just a change in plans?
change in
Wow.
personal plans, yeah, that people jumped on
Hmm.
instead of not having insurance. I know one got married and now has a tube plan, where she had a single plan.
How many dispatchers do we have?
Is 11.
And is that increase there, the 8,700, is that the 40 cents? Are dispatchers are they?
They're in the union.
Union?
Yep.
Oh, okay. In the union. I'm looking at what you spent and what you're asking for. That's what I did all the way through here because,
For 08,
for '06,
okay.
$8,703 difference.
From what was budgeted to what was spent.
Yeah, what was spent was 444,422,
Right.
and what you're asking for is 453,125.
Some of that is the 50-cent increments, because they also fall into that as far as after 5 years, or 10 years, or 15 years.
Plus steps, I would just put.
And
Okay,
But again, that line is gonna be figured hopefully
Different,
to the, almost
yeah.
to the penny,
yeah.
once we get that figure.
Right, right.
And if you didn't know, that deputies and dispatchers, some of this figures is, there is a differential pay for nights, 3 to 11 shifts, and weekend shifts. So to figure that out to the
Yeah.
hour is
No.
almost impossible,
Yeah.
because if someone doesn't come to work, now you've got to replace them. That replacement may be at a different rate,
Hmm.
Mhm.
so it's,
All right, so your special dispatchers, are those your fill-ins? when you say special
Yes,
dispatchers,
yeah,
so you
those are
went
the
over what you
part-timers.
really budgeted, so you're just making up for that, I'm assuming.
I've asked for an increase, and I think we took out a little overtime on dispatch.
You did? I have 32,000.
Yeah, it was,
You spent 34. You only budgeted 25.
okay,
That's 08.
okay, for overtime, we spent 16, was budgeted 18, and now we're budgeting 15 for overtime
Oh, wait, that's different. Wait a minute.
on
Okay, so,
line
right,
5.
so
And then
05, right, but
And then
then
the special was 25.9,
that's what was
budgeted.
budgeted, right.
and I've asked for an increase to offset the decrease in overtime, because a lot of times it's easier to find a part-timer to work instead of getting a full-timer to work the overtime.
Hmm.
Because anything more than 8 hours in dispatch is kind of hard for them.
Okay. So 32.
And that's still less than what we spent
And,
in the
In
specials.
overtime?
In the specials.
well, your special,
We spent 34.3,
right, but you only had budgeted 25, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you.
26.
but I'm
26, yeah.
I'm
But you're
asking
asking for
for
32.
32.
Okay. So there's no play in that one?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could ask. Medical,
Because it's the same crew, and I see it going the same way.
okay. The only other thing that I have, and I know about the uniforms, you aren't gonna do that anymore, that's
Yep.
perfectly fine. As your new equipment
Yeah.
is up 21 on that. You only spent in new equipment there, in 97, 3,754, yet you're asking, and you were only budgeted for 6,000,
Yeah.
but you're asking for 25.
This is for the TriTech, which is the reporting system, IMC. Your police departments have it, which is how they do their reports and record keeping. This would enable the county to become, the hub is basically what it is.
The what?
The hub,
The
which
hub.
is all the departments could feed in their information. If they run a record check on anyone, that information comes to here where it's stored, and then they can see it live and
So if somebody just
immediately-
did something in Albany, they're gonna find out in Tuftonboro if
Right.
the guy's going through
Right.
town. How does that work with the 3 towns that would have their own dispatch?
it will work.
will.
They can buy into it. Their upgrades would cost less because they have most of the stuff. I know Chief Shigori has dispatch also on his IMC, so he's less than what Ospey's gonna cost to upgrade their system, because they don't have much other than what's in their office to do reports.
So Moultonboro will have to pick up,
There's
I was gonna say.
there's an initial cost to upgrade their software. Which would be the same
If they
for Conway
want to,
PD,
or
if
they're
they
gonna
want to.
have to? If they
If they
want
want
to.
to.
So all of the towns that you dispatch for wouldn't be paying for any of this, they're just paying
No.
on their tax dollars, right? They aren't gonna pay a fee
Right.
like Moultonboro would have
Right.
to, or Conway, or Wolfboro.
Right. They can choose to upgrade their system to,
that's only
Be in it.
because they have a dispatch.
Oh, right.
and then at any time, they can jump out of it and go back to their old ways.
Right.
But it would, I believe, it'll help on cleaning up some of the warrants in the county. Because now, if they stop them, they're gonna see what we have instead of having to make a phone call if they're not doing it. Hey, do you have a civil warrant? It's gonna pop up.
It's gonna pop
Everything's
up.
pop up.
Okay.
Their in-house warrants should pop up.
All right.
And this will all develop with the laptop stuff, and I know Molten Borough is probably the only town in the county using that system, with the iPads or whatever they're using in the cruises.
In the cruisers, yeah.
But that would all tie into this, where they could see a chase basically happening and live and
Mhm.
uncensored.
So when I did the dispatch budget and did the totals, that budget's up about 91,000.
Yeah, we're gonna take a beating on this. And what about the
From your
the
actuals.
900,000 that we've talked about?
That's,
We're not putting it in the budget because
Right.
it doesn't exist.
Oh, okay,
it'll be a special meeting is what it's gonna
Yeah.
be.
right, okay.
They won't know, they're not meeting from what I understand, they're not, everybody has the 17 applications in that committee. They're reviewing them. Come March, they're gonna get together, I think for the first time, to start weeding out
Mhm.
who might get it and what they might get.
Is that happening where?
It's
In
still-
Washington?
Concord,
Concord.
Still like to look at that
Homeland Security.
contract.
Yeah, I
You
did.
sent
I
it, I can
emailed it
forward
to
it to
you
you.
and,
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
I
I'll forward it to you.
just
It's
wanna be able-
lengthy.
Mr. Credelli, I think.
It's
also.
lengthy.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's kind of important that we
Yeah, I'll let you read
make
that
sure
through.
that there
It's-
aren't any
yeah.
hooks in there that we don't
Mhm.
want to be part of.
I'll forward that over to you.
Excuse me for being suspicious of federal government.
But open your email when I send it to you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that's
That was because of the 1,500 emails I
16,000.
got about
But I
1589.
put that little red flag
Yeah,
on it
that-
for you and
I
everything.
didn't see it right there.
Okay, I'll put two next
I was
time.
busy just deleting all the other stuff.
I know, I did too.
That was crazy.
And then the revenues, I've got question marks because some of the revenue projections are down. I've got a difference between the total and revenue of about 200,000.
But back to dispatch, the biggest line I see that was the change was the medical insurance.
Yes, yeah,
For those change of plans.
that was a biggie,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So that's well taken, okay. So, from your actuals to what you're projecting, are the commissioners, I don't know why there's a difference there between the commissioner and the subcommittee. Is it because we didn't want to put in
it's the grants.
the grants, that's what I figured.
Actually, I think they're using the old proposal of dispatch income,
Yeah,
which that was an unknown.
well, it's the grant fund, it's the 200,000 that shouldn't be in there.
That and the $50,000 on
The 50
commissioners, on
The
the
52.5
dispatch income.
on 36,
That
right?
should only be
Dispatch. So-
2,500.
Yeah, so we should take those out,
So that would be $250,000, basically. Yeah.
yeah,
That was the original proposal.
yeah.
Um,
You
The
saw what
only-
we're talking?
You're on dispatch income.
Yeah, I'm on,
in-
excuse
bless
me.
you,
Thank
In
you.
grant funds,
The grant, so we're on 36 and
19.
19, yeah.
19, okay.
Yeah, so we need to take that out and just leave 19 as 10,750.
Right.
Okay, and then leave dispatch as 2,500.
Right.
Okay, well, that makes a difference.
And that's Milton Fire.
Milton.
This is 2,500.
That's not good, that's going in the
Well, I
wrong
know,
direction.
I know,
I
that's what I'm
mean-
saying, that was the,
The reason that was in there was, without going for this grant,
right,
to replace the 4 consoles in dispatch. To get the 4 consoles in dispatch, those are $50,000 a piece,
mm,
close estimate. That's why that money was
Right.
there for.
right.
So my question would be, if this grant does not go through,
Yep,
do we look elsewhere
for the money.
for the money, or at least look into capital reserve type to begin this process?
I'm a capital reserve person, so I always like to save and, plan and save for future endeavors. I don't know, how the rest of the delegation feels about that, but, it's like, how do you start the process? It's like, we're hanging out there waiting for a grant that we really have no idea if they're gonna give us some or none, right? We're asking for 900,000, they could come back and say, listen, you can only have 100,000, or, it's really up in the air. So I don't know which direction the delegation wants to go in as far as replacing those consoles, because you're saying they really have to be replaced.
Yeah.
And it's a 200,000 or plus endeavor,
Yes, to replace the consoles.
right?
Yeah.
You really can't put it on the revenue side because we don't know. To me, that needs to stay out. Do you put it on the expenditure side and hope the revenue comes through? But you're gonna pay taxes, or you're gonna, not knowing until after March, the end of March. You've got $200,000 that, we're gonna be paying taxes on. If, you know what I'm saying?
I guess,
If you
Oh,
put that
I
in the
see.
expenditure.
If you put it in the, right.
Yeah,
We can't really do that until we know that the project's gonna move forward, or,
But what he's
Why
saying,
not?
he's saying is that we have to replace those anyway.
but not this year.
well, I
Necessarily.
was just gonna say that we probably could get through this year anyways, no matter what.
Yeah. But are you saying
Hope they
let's
don't break down, but
put money in a capital reserve fund,
Right.
anticipating that we don't get the grant?
would you
but
wanna
I don't
start
know.
at 50,000 or whatever? I don't know.
We'll let it give you one,
Um,
roughly.
I think that's a question that we should have a discussion with the delegation. I'm gonna put that down, don't you, or not?
Sure. I just think you'd be a lot better off if we weren't looking at $200,000 and offset already. It would be nice to come in with pretty close to flat and say, geez, I really need to do this with my console. You've got a bunch of different things that are going on that are, well, I understand the replacement of the vehicles, but I think you've got some room to move there. I don't know, it's a tough one, I understand it. But ultimately, if we can't convince the delegation that this is good, then they're just gonna say, cut your budget by so much, and then you'll be stuck. So I guess it's up to you, really. Obviously, it's up to you.
Are you gonna bring these figures down to Kathy, or do you want me to?
I can.
Okay, so can we go over them just really quick so I know that that's what you're gonna do? In line 02,
Hang on. Looking at revenue.
It's on the,
this is on your
Sheriff's side,
sheriffs,
yeah.
yeah, on expenditures, that 10,000 goes to 5.
right,
And then on overtime, which is 05, from 40,000 to 35.
right.
35.
Yep. And then on 17, conferences, education, 5.
Right.
Down 1,000.
Yep. And that's all I have.
Right.
And then over in revenue, that line 36 should go down to 2,500. And it's already down to 10 on subcommittee, so. Right?
It's already at 10,700.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. But the 36 needs to go down from 52.5 to 2,500.
US Forestry, after talking with the Sheriff's Secretary, that's, not that it's gonna matter, it's probably gonna be a $12,000 grant, not a $12,100.
Okay.
Only because I think that was last year's figure due to the previous year not having $100 spent, I think.
Okay. A little blip. All right, I don't have anything else, do you? You?
No. I think we've covered it all.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, Sheriff?
No, I mean, other income on revenues, that probably went from 500 to 1,000, only because we obviously got back a lot more this year than the $500 projected. That 1,000,
Yeah, what was the 9,000?
that was due to selling the detective van that we had and a cruiser.
Okay,
Oh, the 9,000?
yeah.
Yeah, and other income as far as, that comes in from sheriff transports, juveniles and stuff like that.
Was the van the bulk of that, or?
No, well, no, sold the van for $1,500, $1,400.
Oh, no kidding.
You put those out for bid?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we put it on Craigslist.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
That's how you bid it?
It'd make a good work vehicle.
And the cruiser we paid,
So you don't
We
do,
got
they're not sealed,
2,500.
they're not sealed bids, they're just.
yeah, and the
people-
cruiser we did on the
Yeah.
seal bid, yeah.
Well, I don't have any more questions, I'll just write up my thing, and you'll just give me something basic for minutes, and I'll submit them as a
Sure.
draft.
Just kidding. Yes. As soon as I can look at the video, it makes it a lot easier.
All right.
Total?
Well, in both,
I have to, I don't know that we have an exact number. We'd have to figure it out.
we don't, because of those changes.
And you said you were about 7 to begin, 7%?
But
Let's
that
just
was,
guessing.
that was just, I didn't do a percentage, I mean, when I looked at yours, you were up 99,548. Now, I don't know if that was before changes, I'd really have to go back, to be fair to you, and make sure that those changes
What
that
did
we
you have for a
made.
total? 99?
For sheriff was 99,548. And
And
then
then we
the,
just knocked off
well, yeah, but that's why I wanna go back and look at it.
5, 12, 13,000.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get that total number for you.
99,548 minus 13. Even? 13,000 even?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. It was 40,000. I'm getting confused. I had two numbers written here.
11,000?
So we took 5,000 off the overtime and 5,000 off the administrative salary, or the grant salary. Sorry. And then 1,000 off, so that's 11,000.
Yeah, okay. $88, 548.
And what was the total for last year
For
budget?
last year's budget was, the actual for last year's was 769,974.
974.
769,974. That was that's what he spent. No, that's not right. Sheriff's- 13, no, take that back. It was 1 million, I forgot the one. do I have that? 17616. That doesn't make sense. What's this thing? I did this, I had a guest speaker in class last night, I did all this stuff. Okay, so he's actually spent.
1,720?
1,720.
Yeah.
Why do I have that? Why do I-
So that's an increase
Well,
from
that's
actually
dispatch.
spent.
That's dispatch, I
What
apologize.
you're after is the
Peter.
increase from last year's budget,
Adopted.
Yeah.
or what
Right.
we actually spent?
Last year's budget.
Okay, last year's.
Last
budget.
year's budget was 1,796,982. So he actually spent less. 1,720,229. So I went from actual to budget, and that was the 99,548, now less the 11,000. So if you go to what was actually budgeted, it's probably less, right?
What's our actual budget this year with the?
Well, this year, with the, well, it would be
Minus 11,000.
minus 11,000.
So 1,818.
It's,
08, 1808.
8, yep, 1,808,777. And then dispatch. It's actually 8,955.
Those numbers again for me.
Her. That's the actual, that's recommended, but the budgeted, you want budgeted,
Yeah. I've got
was
that.
1,796.
Right here.
The total. Well, you know, Sheriff. Keep going, go on more.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I have to go. Can we adjourn this meeting?
Sure.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
It's only 9 o'clock.
We adjourn. It's 10:38. I have to be over to New Hampton